Okay, let's start with maybe the biggest question there is. What is, well, everything made of? I mean, really, think about it. It's a question that shapes our entire reality. And, for most of human history, the answer was basically a shot in the dark. So today, we're going to peel back the layers on this ancient mystery. And it all kicks off with a question that sounds super simple, but it's really not. Imagine you take something, anything, a piece of paper, an apple, whatever, and you just keep cutting it in half, and then in half again, and again. Do you eventually get to a point where you just can't cut it anymore? A final, indivisible piece? Or could you just, theoretically, keep cutting forever?
Right. Think about it like this. Take a chunk of salt. You can crush it, grind it down to a super fine powder, right? But every single one of those tiny little grains is still salt. But what if you could keep going smaller? What happens when you get to a piece so incredibly tiny that if you cut it one more time, it stops being salt? That's the heart of the mystery.
For something like 2,000 years, this wasn't really a question for scientists with labs and beakers. Nope. It was a question for philosophers. So in one corner, you've got this Greek thinker, Democritus, and in the other corner, you have the big man himself, Aristotle. And believe it or not, for centuries, that's pretty much where the whole debate just sat. Totally stalled. So Democritus, he called his tiny final particle atomos, which is just Greek for uncuttable or indivisible. But Aristotle, he wasn't having it. He argued that all matter was just this continuous stuff with no smallest piece at all. And because he was, Aristotle, his idea basically won out and dominated Western thinking for almost 2 millennia. The big problem, though? Neither of them had a shred of evidence. It was all just a great big thought experiment.
But then, everything changed. We fast forward to the late 1700s, and thanks to some pretty cool new tech, especially way more accurate scales, scientists could finally stop just arguing about it and actually start measuring things. They began to meticulously weigh stuff before and after chemical reactions, and what they started finding, well, it was going to change absolutely everything.
Okay, so here's clue number 1. When you burn a log in a fireplace, it looks like it just disappears, right? Poof, gone. But these scientists, they figured out that if you could somehow capture and weigh all the ash, all the smoke, and all the gases that came off it, the total weight is exactly the same as the original log. Mass doesn't just vanish, it just changes form. That was the first huge piece of the puzzle. All right, then comes the second clue. They started noticing that pure stuff, chemical compounds, they always follow a strict recipe. It didn't matter if you had a massive crystal of table salt or just a tiny little speck of it. It was always made of the same things in the exact same proportions. And I mean, they could measure it with crazy precision. Table salt is always 39.34% sodium and 60.66% chlorine by mass. Every single time. This perfect consistency, this unchanging recipe for everything, it was a huge hint that matter wasn't just some random goopy stuff. It was like something was making it follow these strict rules.
Okay, now for the third and final clue. And I'll admit, this one's a little bit of a mouthful, so bear with me, because the payoff is brilliant. It turns out that sometimes the exact same two elements can get together in different ways to make totally different things. And when that happens, a really weird and really specific pattern shows up.
So let's look at carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. Both are just made of carbon and oxygen, right? But here's the crazy part. If you take the same amount of carbon for both, you find that carbon dioxide has exactly twice as much oxygen as carbon monoxide. I don't mean close to twice as much or roughly double. I mean exactly double. A perfect, clean 2-to-1 ratio. And this wasn't a one-off thing. This pattern kept popping up everywhere. The ratios were always these simple whole numbers, 2-to-1, 3-to-2. So the question was, why? If matter was just continuous, random stuff like Aristotle thought, it shouldn't be doing this. It was almost like matter came in little pre-packaged, countable units. All the clues were finally there. And this is where our detective enters the scene. In 1808, an English schoolteacher, a guy named John Dalton, he looked at all these clues. Mass is never lost, compounds have fixed recipes, and those weirdly simple whole number ratios. And he put it all together into one single, beautiful theory that explained everything. Basically, he dusted off Democritus's old idea of the atom, but this time he backed it up with science. He said 1, all matter is made of tiny atoms. 2, all atoms of a particular element are identical. 3, and this is a big one, atoms can't be split, created, or destroyed. And 4, atoms combine in simple, whole number ratios to make compounds. See how that lines up with the clues? And just like that, his theory made perfect sense of all the evidence. That law about mass never being lost? Easy. If chemical reactions are just atoms rearranging themselves, like Lego bricks, then of course you end up with the same mass you started with. You're not losing any bricks, you're just building something new. And what about those weird proportions? Dalton's theory nailed that too. Why does carbon dioxide have exactly twice the oxygen of carbon monoxide? Simple. Because one molecule of it has one carbon atom and 2 oxygen atoms, while carbon monoxide only has 1 of each. Since you can only combine whole atoms, you can't have half an atom, the ratios have to be simple whole numbers. It all just clicked. And that right there was the genius of what Dalton did. He took the atom from being this, 2,000-year-old philosophical idea and turned it into a real scientific theory. He connected the abstract concept of atoms to something you could actually put on a scale and measure: mass. Now, for the first time, science could actually test and build on the idea of the atom. So there you have it. Mystery solved, right? Democritus had the right idea all along, and Dalton came in with the proof. Case closed. Well, not so fast, because as it always happens in science, when you solve one huge mystery, you usually find a brand new one hiding right behind it. See, Dalton's theory was absolutely brilliant, a massive leap forward, but it wasn't perfect. There were a couple of really key things in there that, as it turns out, were wrong. His biggest claim, right, that atoms are indivisible. Well, we later found out you can split them into even smaller pieces: protons, neutrons, electrons. And he also said all atoms of one element are totally identical. Turns out that's not quite right either. We now know about things called isotopes, which are atoms of the same element that have slightly different weights. And that brings us right to the edge of a whole new mystery. By proving atoms were real, Dalton basically gave us the foundation for all of modern chemistry. But by being wrong about them being uncuttable, he accidentally opened the door to the next great adventure, modern physics. Because if the atom isn't the smallest piece of the puzzle, then what is? What's inside? So, we started with a simple question from ancient Greek philosophers, and now look how far we've come. We have tools that let us not only see individual atoms, but we can actually pick them up and arrange them, one by one, to create incredible structures like this quantum corral you're looking at. The journey to figure out what matter really is, it's so far from over. And honestly, it's just getting started.